Hi! In this series, we're going to learn Django real-world development by building this awesome website. Our website has dynamic features, including infinite scroll, dynamic search and filtering, real-time form submission, interactive modals, and toast notifications. And of course, our users can create accounts, log in, log out, create lists, delete lists, put movies in lists, delete movies from lists, and possibly share their lists. While we create this awesome website, we'll be learning so much about Django, as well as how to add dynamic features with HTMX very easily, and obviously how to style the website. We'll be using Bootstrap for that. And for live data, we'll be using the movie database API, which is free to use and amazing. All right, now let's get coding. Let's begin by creating a new directory where our project is gonna live. I'm gonna call it Movie Spot, but of course you can call it yours, whatever you want. I'm going to open it in Visual Studio Code, but of course you can open your directory in any code editor you like. Alrighty, now let's talk about prerequisites. In order to use Django, we need to make sure we have a compatible version of Python installed on our machine. We'll be using the latest version of Django. So if you want to follow along the tutorial, you need to ensure you have Python 3.10 or later installed on your machine. So before we begin, let's check that we have a compatible version of Python. I'll check with the command py-version. Okay, I have Python 3.13.1 installed, which means I'm good to go. Okay, so now that we know we have Python installed, let's go ahead and create a virtual environment. So py-m venv, and I'll call my virtual environment venv. Okay, I'll hit enter. Alrighty, here's our virtual environment. Let's activate it. So venv /scripts/activate. Alrighty, now that venv is active, let's go ahead and install Django. So pip install Django, and we hit enter. Alrighty, Django is installing. While we wait, I'm hoping that if you like this type of content, you would give it a like hit the thumbs up button, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Django is installed, which means we can create a Django project. The command is Django-admin start project, and then the name we want to give our project. I'm gonna call the project Movie Spot. And I would like it to be created in the directory we're in right now, so I'll add a period. Let's hit enter. Alrighty, here's our project. Okie dokie. Next up, we want to create a users app. That's where we're going to keep user-related logic. Like that's where we're gonna have registration, login, logout, everything related to authentication. It's also where we're going to have the logic related to user managed lists and stuff like that. So to start an app in Django, the command is py-manage.py start app, and then the name you want to give the app. So I'll just call it users. Let's hit enter. And here's our users app, complete with admin apps, models, tests, and views.py. Okie dokie. So if you're new to Django and you're confused by all these files, don't worry about it. We'll explain what they do as we go. Okay, now the first place we want to go to is models.py. So models.py is where we tell Django about how we want to organize our data. But why are we here in models.py so early on? Well, that's a good question. As you might know, Django comes with a very powerful authentication system. And by default, unless you tell Django otherwise, it's going to think you want to use the default user model, which is super powerful and super great, but it's not customizable. And unless you tell it that you want to use a customizable model, it's going to create tables for the default user model when we create our database. So later on, when we run migration and create the database, we'll be stuck with the default user model. All we gotta do for Django to make our user model customizable is just define a user model that inherits from abstract user. So I'm just gonna copy this code and paste it. And I'm going to change the name of the model to custom user because I feel that's more descriptive. Next up, we need to tell Django about our custom user model and also about the users app we've just created. Doing that is so easy. We're going to go to the directory that's named after our Django project. Inside it, there is a file called settings.py. We want to go into it. So the settings.py file is the file that defines the configuration of our project and how it behaves. Sometimes I like to think of it as the brain of the project. So we need to add the app that we've just created, the users app, to installed apps. So Django knows about it. And since we defined the custom user model, we wanna also tell Django about it. And to do this, all we gotta do is set auth user model to the custom user model we've created. So auth user model, we'll set it to users because that's the name of our app, dot the name of our model. So users.customUser. Okay, now since a large part of what our app does is related to movies and fetching movies and discovering movies, let's create another application and call it movies. So we'll use the same command, which is py manage.py stored app, and we'll call this app movies. Alrighty, let's hit enter. And here's our movies app. It was created. Okay, now let's add it to installed apps, just like we've done when we created our users app. Alrighty, now let's try to run server for the first time and see what happens. To run server, the command is py manage.py run server, and we hit enter. Okay, so we got our first error. Django is complaining that our users app doesn't have migrations. So in Django, migrations are version control for our database schema. They track changes in our models. Now Django can tell that we have defined a custom user model, but we don't have migrations. So let's run the command py manage.py make migrations and see what happens. See? Create user model. Django made an initial migrations file, and if we visit it and check out what's in it, we'll find a list of operations that contains create model with the name custom user. Now, if we want this to be applied into our database, then we need to run migrations. We need to migrate. Actually, since this would be the first time we migrate, doing that will also create our database. So let's go ahead and do that. Py manage.py migrate. Alrighty. As you can see, an SQLite 3 database was created for us. Yay. Okay, now let's try to run server. So py manage.py run server. Alrighty, let's follow link. Yay, it says the install worked successfully. Congratulations. Woohoo. Alrighty, now we want to start creating a base template. What's a base template, you may ask? So in Django, a template is basically where we write the user-facing part of our application. Think of Django templates as HTML files with extra superpowers. We also get a lot of super cool abilities, such as template inheritance. Because of template inheritance, we can save ourselves so much time and energy, and we can create a base template and then extend it within our other templates. Let me show you. So within our root directory, on the same level as manage.py, let's create a new folder and call it templates. And that's where our base.html file is going to live. Base.html. Now inside this base.html file, we want to put HTML Boilerplate. I'm actually just going to copy this code from the docs and just paste it in base.html. As you might have noticed, there isn't just HTML boilerplate in this code. There are also blocks. Blocks are very cool because they're so easy to define and they act as placeholders. And as you can see here, you can provide a default value and then you can super easily override that in a child template. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the default movie spot. Alrighty, let's inspect the code some more. So we have the head element, and inside the body element, there are two blocks. There is block sidebar and block content. So for this project, I don't think we'll be creating a sidebar. We will be creating a navbar. So I'm going to change the name of this block and make it block navbar. And this will serve as a placeholder for my navbar. Basically, blocks could also help you keep your code organized. Now, let's look at the other block we have here, block content. So I suppose block content is self-explanatory. This is basically where we would write HTML we want the user to see. Basically, whatever we would usually write between the body tags. Usually, I like to define more blocks. For example, I'm a big fan of defining block extra CSS. Defining template blocks is easy and fun. Use the curly brackets and percentage signs. You write block and then the name you want to give your block. And then you use brackets and percentage signs again and you write end block. Alrighty. Now, as you might have guessed, every time we create HTML files in Django, we need to put them in a templates directory. So we should also create a templates directory inside our users app. And we also need to create a templates directory in our movies app. And later on, we're going to add HTML files. Now, Django will be able to find the templates directory inside the movies app and also the templates directory inside the users app. Because by default, Django looks for template files inside app directories. As you can see here in settings.py, there is a templates list. And over here you can see appders is set to true. But we've also put the templates directory in the base there. So let's tell Django about it. So all we gotta do is just write base there /templates, which just means a directory called templates in the base directory. Alrighty, now let's go back to our base.html. So we've defined block navbar because we want a navbar, right? And we probably want the same navbar for all our templates. Do you think we should define the navbar right here? Or would it be better if we could define the navbar in another file and then just include it. I prefer the second option. So let's create a new directory and call it includes. And inside it, let's create a new file. And that would be where we'll be keeping our navbar. So let's call it navbar.html. Of course, creating a directory called includes is not necessary. I just like to keep my code extra clear and extra organized. So I try to make descriptive directories whenever I can. Okay, right now let's just create a paragraph element and have it say nav for now. And let's go back to our base.html and let's include the navbar.html. Django has a very useful built-in tag called include, the include tag, and we can use it to include other templates within a template. So as with all other Django template tags, it involves curly brackets and percentage signs. And then we use the word include, and then we put the path of the file we want to include, starting from the templates directory. In this case, it's includes / navbar.html. Now, it would be cool if we could test if this whole thing works, right? So how about we start creating a landing page? So let's go to our movies app and let's go to views.py. Views.py is where we define the logic for handling requests and returning web responses. So let's create our landing page view. Let's call it landing page. Now let's pass in the request object. So all we want right now from our view is to render a template that we are yet to create. So return render. We need to pass in the request object. And then after that, all we gotta do is just specify the template we want. So let's go ahead and create a new folder called movies after our app. You don't have to create this folder. However, organizing templates per app is considered best practice as it helps avoid template name conflicts and it also makes it easier to maintain your project. Alrighty, now let's create landing.html, which is the template we want to render through our landing page view. So let's write the relative path to it from the templates directory. So movies / landing.html. Okay, now we need to create a URL route to point to our view. So let's go ahead and create a new file in our movies app and call it urls.py. And that's where we're going to define URL patterns for our movies app. So we're going to need to import path from Django URLs, from Django.urls import path. And Django expects us to define our URL patterns in a URL patterns list. So let's create our URL patterns list. And we want our landing page to be at their root URL. So we'll just keep the path here an empty string. And then we want to link this path to our landing page view. So let's import it. So from views, import landing page. Okay, let's pass it in. Okay, and now let's give this route a name. Let's call it landing page. Alrighty, now we need to go to the directory that has settings.py and go to urls.py. And we want to include the URL patterns belonging to our movies app. To do this, we just gotta import include from Django URLs, and we're just going to add a path to URL patterns, and we want our movies patterns to be at the root. So we'll just keep an empty string here, and then we'll use include. And what we want to include are the URL in our movies app. So we'll write movies.urls, and that should do it. Okay, so let's try to run server again. So manage.py run server. And now we have an empty page instead of the welcome page that comes when you create a Django project, which is a good sign. So you guys remember how we created a base.html earlier, and we included navbar.html that currently has nav in a paragraph element? Let's try to extend base.html in landing.html and see what happens. So extends base.html. Right, and now let's try to hard refresh. Yay, here's nav. It worked. Okay, so what do you guys say we get Bootstrap? So we can make our website beautiful super quickly and super easily. So we're going to include it using CDN because it's easy and works great. So let's copy this link, and we need to put it in our head element. So let's go back to base.html and let's just paste it in the head element like so. And we need to put this link as the last element in our body. So back to base.html, and we will just paste it under block content. And since we'll be extending base.html for all templates within this project, so we'll have Bootstrap globally just by doing that. Okay, now let's see if we can style our navbar with Bootstrap. So let's search for navbar on the Bootstrap website. And I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to paste it. All right, and now let's refresh. Yay, it worked. Cool. Okay, now instead of navbar, let's have it say the name of our creation, which is movie spot, and let's set href to / so users could always come back to the landing page by clicking on it. Now let's refresh. Yay, it worked. Woohoo. I think I'd prefer it if the navbar were dark, so I'm going to delete this and add navbar dark, background dark also. Refresh. Yay, that looks good. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we'll be adding more cool features like fetching movies from the movie database and working some more on our landing page. It's gonna be so much fun. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!